Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Today is Wednesday, the 28th of October, 2020. What I want to talk about here is all across the Western world. Now, in the East, Russia, China, their economies, they've been pulling them away for quite a period of time, creating their own equivalency of the World Bank. They got their own equivalency of it. They've created their own equivalency of the SWIFT system. And the reason why they've done these things, the reason why China's accumulated probably in excess of 20,000 tons of gold and smelted it into 1 kilogram sized bars and stacked it away from themselves. Now they're acquiring silver. China is. The reason why they're doing these things, and they've been doing them for quite some time, during the Obama administration, when they exceeded the debt ceiling, China got very upset, and they came to a realization in China at that point in time that the dollar was going to go down. They have top economists that work for China in their intelligence, and they understood, and they started separating themselves from the Western economic system. We've got systematic problems within the Western economic system that cannot be resolved at this point. It's like a cancer that's growing tumors everywhere. It's like we've lost it, basically. Our economic system is on its way down. And, all across the United States of America, we have pension funds, state, local, county authorities and everything that are running out of money. They can't meet their obligations. So one of two things is either going to have to happen here in this next year. It was well and fine. They were out, the money managers and things were looking for yields, and they were investing in junk bonds, and they're telling people, hey, this is a high yield. Oh, that sounds good, invest your money in it and everything. Invest your pension money in it. And what it really was junk bonds. Now, an awful lot of these junk bonds are only paying 1, 2, 3 cents on the dollar. They're going bust, the bonds. We have state, local, and government authorities and counties, many places that are running out of money. They're not going to be able to pay their obligations. They're not going to be able to pay for their police forces. They're not going to be able to pay for fire and emergency services or anything unless they're bailed out. And it's coming this next year. The proverbial you-know-what is going to hit the fan in this next year. And so there's only going to be one or two options. If you bail one out, you got to bail them all out. Government's going to have to bail them all out. There's no choice. Or let them go down. And if it goes down, what happens is first off, you have to understand people out there. These are general working people, and they have expectations. Expected their pensions to come through. They expected they didn't expect to be only paid 30 cents on the dollar or 20 cents on the dollar or even 10 cents on the dollar for their pensions. They want dollar for dollar. If you don't bail them out, I can't begin to tell you the anger that'll come. And plus, there won't be any services unless these states get bailouts and stuff. You won't have fire service. You won't have, the list, adequate police service and everything. It's just, the whole system in the Western world, the whole Western world is in the same boat. It's all ready to start falling apart in this next year. Unless it's all bailed out. They say, well, what's the problem? Bail it all out. Yeah, they can. They've got an unlimited printing press here in the West. In the developed countries, most of them are very similar. They've got basically unlimited ability to produce money. Well, that's the direction that they're all going to move in. Because none of them want to be held responsible for what would happen if they didn't bail these things out. They'd be out of office. Or worse, much worse. So, yeah, they're going to yield to the pressure. They're going to bail everything out in this next year. But this is the year of the bailout. 2021 is going to be the year of the bailout. And what's that going to do to the Western currencies? The pound, the British pound, the Swiss franc, the Canadian dollar, the American dollar. What's it going to do to these currencies? Well, I can tell you right now what it's going to do. Once all of these bailouts really start to come full force and the money creation starts to become really manifest, and other things too. They got 20 million people in the United States right now that don't have a job. They all need to be supported too. Profound inflation, for one thing. It's a fall and collapse of the Western world, the Western civilized world. And, there's not many answers out there as solutions. Going back to a gold standard, that's what an awful lot of economists have offered as a solution to all of this. They don't really take Bitcoin into consideration as being a new gold standard, For some reason yet, they don't really take Bitcoin seriously. But, this situation, whether Bitcoin becomes a new gold standard or gold becomes a new gold standard, this situation that's coming up is going to call for a hard money standard behind the Western fiat currencies, because they are all going to be on their way to zero at this point. We've moved beyond the Rubicon. We've been sucked in past the area of no return on a black hole at this point. A black hole of money and money creation. And, we're getting an awful lot of estimates over the internet. People saying, well, gold's going to go to 10,000, 5,000, 15,000. Some saying 100,000. They're all over the place, these estimates. They all know it's going to go up big. It's going to take advantage of it. But what about Bitcoin? The way I see it right now, I see that these people who are in the markets, when the market starts to roll over, they need to cover some of their losses and stuff. And, they'll sell gold and they'll sell silver. They're selling the SLV and GLD, but some of them are selling a little bit of Bitcoin too. But they're very, very hesitant about selling their Bitcoin. If Bitcoin really was such a non-valuable asset, such a non-valuable commodity, you'd think they would sell it when they need to cover their positions in the market, when the market starts to roll down. Very hesitant about doing it. Yeah, it dropped a little bit this morning when the market rolled over. But it didn't drop that much. Gold dropped just as much, if not more. So, these are the asset classes, and I think they're crazy for selling them even, because Bitcoin's going to take advantage of this situation that's coming. This is the fall of the Western fiat financial system, which is basically built as a Ponzi scheme. Should have never been done back when they first started the Federal Reserve. They put in motion a system by which they create this currency by debt. They create the currency. There's debt attached to it in the form of interest, but they never create the fiat currency to pay the interest. They only create the principal. And as this interest accrues over a period of 100 years or more, actually it's more than 100 years, started back in around 1913, and now it's the year 2020, so it's like well in excess of 100 years of this Ponzi scheme business. The interest has been accruing all this time. And they never created that money. It's not in existence. So if you try to pay off the debt, all of the money disappears, every last penny. So that we don't have any money to exchange. We don't have anything to use as an exchange of value, to sell anything, to do anything with. Because all the money exists in your wallet right now, in cash form, has debt attached to it. More debt than the money that's in existence. And so we can't ever get out of this hole. It only has to grow larger and larger, because if we ever try to climb out, pay off the debt, This is what an awful lot of these conservative politicians and stuff who get in office and they'll say, oh, we got to pay everything off. We got to try to reduce the debt. Reduce the debt. You can't reduce it. You have to keep expanding it at an ever-expanding rate. It's on an exponential. And we finally reached that point in the exponential where the debt's going straight up now at this point. That's the crisis point. And it's coming to a head next year. You're going to see consumer inflation because they are going to have to do fiscal stimulus in a big measure, which they've never ever done before. They've done monetary policy for years now, and it's absolutely having no effect now at this point, or very little. The only effect of it is making a very few people extremely wealthy. That's all it's doing. And so now they're going to have to move to heavy amounts of fiscal stimulus measures in order to try to hold this whole corrupt system together. And in essence, they're only pushing on a string. And so now at this point, this is when it really begins in this next year in earnest. You're probably going to see some sort of payment system set up connected directly to the Fed, where they're probably going to send in the mail. And see, it's becoming clear now what's going to happen. Probably this next year, you're going to see cards, a little credit card. And it's going to be digital money directly from the Fed, and it's going to be assigned to you, that digital credit card. And they'll send you money as they please. They'll take down all of your information. They'll probably have every household connected to it. And every household will be sent a card. And it'll be connected probably to your social security number. And more than likely that card, they'll send you money as they please, discerning how much they send you, but according to your income. And so money will magically appear on there. And this is going to be the fiscal stimulus to each and every person. But it's more than just doing that. They're probably going to bail out state and local authorities, pension funds, bail them all out. Can you imagine the amount of money that this is going to have, that it's going to take to do all this? And, when these investors out there, they start to see this actually happening, they see the government bailing everyone out, just creating money willy-nilly, the world investors, the people who hold the debt, who hold the bonds and treasuries and everything else, are going to start saying to themselves, this is never going to end. They're just going to keep printing and printing until it's all worthless, and there's going to be a mad rush to get out at a certain point when a realization occurs. See, during this last year that we've been in, there's a difference of opinion out there. A lot of economists and a lot of investors and everything, they see what's going on, and a lot of them think, hey, the system is going to crash, stock market's going to go down 80% or more, and we're going to go into a deflation. And the dollar is going to become worth more because there's going to be margin calls everywhere as the system deflates. And dollars are going to be in short supply, and the dollar is going to go up massively. So they've been investing in the dollar, thinking deflation. But, when push comes to shove, when the pressure really starts to come on these politicians, when state and local governments and everything are run out of money, and the system starts to actually collapse, and the people start to revolt because they don't have enough money to buy food, you watch them send out these cards in the mail to everybody. You watch them put money on these cards. You watch them bail out state, local, and government authorities and counties and everything else. You watch them bail everybody out. Watch it happen. And then these guys who've been sitting on the fence for this last year saying, hey, it might be deflation, I'm going to hoard dollars, they're going to all realize, it's going to become apparent to them at that point that it's not going to be deflation, it's going to be inflation. And when that consensus occurs between the people who already know it's going to be inflation and the people who don't really know yet, when the consensus occurs, then they're all going to rush for the gates. And that's Bitcoin's going to take advantage of all of this. Like it's never taken advantage of anything before. This is going to be... You think Bitcoin goes up on a little bit of news, like maybe that different payment services are going to use Bitcoin or whatever, and Bitcoin goes up. You haven't seen nothing yet to when the realization comes that they're going to print the dollar into oblivion. The first thing that's going to happen is they're going to go after physical gold and silver. But when it's all gone, there's still going to be all this money floating around in the system because they're printing the dollar into oblivion. They're creating money like it's going out of style. Where do you think that money's going to flow once you cannot obtain real physical gold or silver? Because there's not a finite supply of gold and silver out there in a physical form for people to buy. But there is an infinite amount of money to buy it with. So you've got a finite supply, a very limited finite supply of physical metals. And you've got infinite amounts of money to spend on it. And everybody's going to rush for the gates. It's going to be all gone. So then when you can't buy it, you can't buy it. The price is going up like crazy. What are they going to turn to? As an alternative. Cryptocurrencies. And in fact, they're going to turn to it as an alternative before the gold and silver are even gone. We're already seeing movements in the crypto space. Then everybody who listens to my channel and, follows what I've been telling them for a long time, and maybe has a little bit of Bitcoin put away for themselves. And I'm going to tell you guys, you're not going to need much Bitcoin. Because if all of this money in the whole Western world all flows into these tight little gaps, Bitcoin, gold, and silver, this is a transfer of wealth. Because the money represents things. It represents your car, your house, it represents your business, it represents everything is represented by the fiat currency of the day, which is basically mostly the dollar. And when the dollar goes, poof, all of these things still exist. Your house, your car, your land, the business, everything's still there. But it can't be priced in dollars anymore because the dollar is valueless. So what's it going to be priced in? Gold, silver, and cryptos. And, when you're moving all of the world's wealth, all of the Western world's wealth, into those three asset classes, 1,000 times up in price is not an overestimate of what it can do. And so when I say you don't need a lot of Bitcoin, right now, I don't know, maybe some people listening to my audience might have 1% of one Bitcoin. It might be all you need. Or, let's put it this way, you might be a heck of a lot better off than your neighbor, and your neighbor right now, he might have $1 million. He might lose it all on its way to zero, because this whole thing can happen awful fast. Once the investor world out there realizes which way this is going. Right now, they're half and half. Half of them out there think, hey, it's going to deflate. The stock market's going to drop 80%, 70%, the system's going to deflate, and the dollar's going to be worth more. And the other half of them out there think, no, it's going to inflate. But once they see for sure which way this is going, and I'm a little bit ahead of the curve, I already know which way it's going, and I'm basing all of this on one fact. The political structure and the men that are in charge out there, when the real pressure hits them, when the system does start to deflate, and it's already doing it right now. Today it was deflating. When the system starts to deflate, when the pressure really gets heavy, in other words, when it really gets bad and they can see their system crumbling from under them, they're going to relent and they're going to print like hell. They're going to print. Oh, they're going to print. That's going to be the call to action for the people who realize and are smart enough to put some of these assets away for themselves. And like I say, you're not going to need a lot of Bitcoin. Probably, it might be a little bit more than 1%, but you figure it goes up 1,000 times, okay? That means that 1% of one Bitcoin suddenly becomes the equivalent of what 10 Bitcoin is now. Okay? 1,000 times. That means that your 1%, if you got just a measly 1% of a Bitcoin right now, which is only a small amount, it'll be the equivalent of if you had 10 Bitcoins right now. Now, how would you feel right now if you had 10 full Bitcoins in your wallet? Feel an awful lot different. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's $130,000 or $135,000. It's a lot of money. Okay, maybe it wouldn't be quite enough to do a retirement or whatever, or what you need, 130,000, but it's still a substantial amount of money. But what does 1% of a Bitcoin cost right now? $130, right? This is the kind of investment I think that you're making, and this is how much I think that these things are going to go up. And gold and silver are going to do equally as well during this. The people that are going to lose everything are the people that are invested in these fiat currencies, and they're too stubborn to get out before it's too late. And I think that all this is going to happen in probably the next 24 to 36 months. I don't think it's going to take an awful long time. Like, some of these guys out there saying, oh, it's going to take 20 years. Not when the real knowledge of what's happening hits the investment world. It's not going to take 20 years. They're not going to sit there and say, well, we're not going to do it this year, guys. We're going to hang on to the dollars because we got to wait another 19 years and 5 months before we do this. I don't think so. I think when they come to that realization, they're going to be like, we want it done yesterday. They're going to get right over there and they're going to start clicking that mouse button, selling dollars and buying Bitcoin immediately. They're not going to sit around and say, once they realize it's definitely going to be inflation. And once they realize that the Fed is bailing out everyone, they're not going to sit around on their butts. Investors don't do that. Investors, when they see something happening and there's a big shift, they get right on it. Yesterday. And they're all piling in. This is something that could happen almost overnight, in a matter of days, and just a mad panic. And, if you're sitting on the sidelines and you're holding cryptocurrencies, gold and silver, well, you'll have to watch all this happen. But what I'm worried about is the collateral side effects of all this. Because you just cannot transfer and take all of that money, all that value out of fiat currencies and put it into something else without it having tremendous ramifications. Unless you do it slowly. And I don't think this is going to happen slowly. I think this could be part of what... Look, the chaos that comes from this could be 10 times what we've seen with this pandemic. The chaos that comes from the whole Western world's financial system basically sinking and everybody trying to get into a different asset class from where they are now. The chaos that would ensue. Anyway, listen, guys. Thank you for listening to my show. Like and subscribe. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.